Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something that is honestly just truly fascinating. We're going to explore how these ancient texts don't just offer, abstract, head-in-the-clouds spiritual ideas, but actually provide a highly practical, rigorously logical framework for everyday prosperity. We're talking personal resilience and even macro-level societal peace. If you've ever felt like you kind of have to choose between getting ahead in the world and keeping your inner peace, well, let's look at what this framework actually has to say. Okay, so let's dive right in by starting with a deeply personal question. It's about how we try to secure a bright future for those we love the absolute most. Think about your kids, your family, your closest friends. We spend so much time hoping and praying and wishing for their success and happiness, right? But here's the tough question this ancient wisdom asks us. Do those wishes actually do anything?
Which brings us to Section 1, Beyond Wishing for Success.
Look, we all want the absolute best for our kids and families. But let's be real. Simply hoping for that success is never quite enough. Relying on empty wishes can actually just leave us feeling super frustrated when things don't go according to plan. Wishing is literally an empty dream unless we create the correct root causes to guarantee that success. Now, the source texts refer to this through the lens of karma. And actually, scratch the mystical vibes you might associate with that word. It simply means action and consequence. You cannot harvest a crop if you haven't planted the seed, no matter how hard you wish for it. If we want our loved ones to thrive, we have to equip them with the actual tools and conditions that predictably generate success. It is simply a system of cause and effect.
Moving on to Section 2, Worldly and Spiritual Wealth.
So this brings us to a really fascinating realization. Often, we're told that to be deeply ethical or spiritual, you basically have to reject worldly success. But the Buddhist teachings argue the exact opposite. These 5 pillars, faith, precepts, learning, generosity, and wisdom, they don't just make you a good spiritual person, they act as the ultimate toolkit for building massive worldly success too. Think about it. You have faith, which is a grounded confidence in what's true. Precepts, meaning a really strong ethical baseline. Learning, so continuously gathering knowledge. Generosity, the willingness to give and share. And wisdom, the ability to discern right from wrong. These aren't just polite moral guidelines, they are the absolute fundamental building blocks of a highly successful, respected life.
And when you apply those 5 pillars, the payoff is very real and totally tangible. You build abundant wealth and resources, you cultivate a thriving family, and your status and honor naturally rise up in your community. And honestly, the best part? You acquire this success entirely ethically. You aren't leaving a trail of destruction behind you. You are succeeding because of your strong foundation, not in spite of it.
All right, Section 3, Solving the Root of Suffering. Now, life isn't always smooth. We all face challenges, which means we really need to look at how we handle the inevitable pain, stress, and suffering that suddenly pops up in our personal and professional lives. When dealing with pain, we usually just default to what's called the worldly way. You know the drill. You have a terrible day at work, so you go out drinking, maybe you binge watch a show, you seek out some temporary entertainment just to numb the stress. But the huge problem is, when the movie ends or the morning comes, that stress is still sitting right there. Then we have the noble way. This is about totally rejecting that temporary fix and instead aggressively seeking out the actual root cause of the problem to dismantle it permanently.
The Noble Way relies on concepts like dependent origination and the 4 Noble Truths. Now, I know those might sound like archaic, mystical terms, but I promise you they aren't. They are actually the ultimate modern root cause analysis tools. Dependent origination is a perfectly logical framework. It basically states, because this exists, that arises. It teaches us to trace our stress, our conflicts, or our failures back step by step to their absolute origin. Once you find that root, you can pull the whole weed out, rather than just endlessly trimming the leaves. Make sense?
Next up, Section 4, Healing Society Starts Within.
So if we can fix our own problems at the root, how does this scale up to all the conflict and chaos we see out in the wider world around us? Man, it is so tempting to look outward and try to force everyone else to change, isn't it? But the source texts point out a really crucial truth. Do not run to fix others. Govern yourself first. If every single person simply took responsibility for their own ethical foundation, society would naturally fall into a state of peace. It's a profound reminder that true, lasting systemic change always begins with radical personal responsibility.
And that leads perfectly into Section 5, Governing by Rewarding the Good.
How do we take this really intimate concept of self-governance and scale it all the way up to the macro level? Like, how do you govern a whole nation, or even just a massive organization, using these exact same principles? Well, the source material shares an incredible masterclass in leadership through the ancient story of King Mahavajitavi. Now, this king faced a dilemma that literally every modern leader faces. His kingdom was plagued by bad actors, criminals, and chaotic elements, what the texts vividly describe as thorns. And his immediate instinct, like a lot of leaders, was to just strike back with force.
But the Buddha advised the king that simply punishing people, whether through executions, throwing them in jail, exiling them, or taking their wealth, that's never going to fully eliminate the kingdom's problems. It's exactly like that worldly way of handling stress we talked about earlier. It's a temporary fix that completely ignores the root cause. The thorns will always grow back because the underlying conditions of the society haven't changed one bit.
So instead of endless punishment, the text suggests this totally counterintuitive three-step economic stimulus plan. Get this, the advice was to heavily invest resources entirely into the good people. Step 1, raise the salaries of the honest, hardworking civil servants. Step 2, provide capital and funding directly to the diligent merchants and business owners. And Step 3, distribute seeds, food, and resources to the dedicated farmers.
When you relentlessly empower the diligent and ethical citizens, they build a robust, thriving economy and an incredibly solid cultural foundation. By funneling all that energy and resources into what is good, the bad elements, those thorns, are naturally starved of oxygen. They organically lose their power and influence without the ruler ever having to engage in an endless, draining conflict. It's brilliant.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, really powerful question to help you apply this macro governance strategy right back to your micro, everyday life. Instead of exhausting your energy, fighting the thorns, the difficult people, the endless frustrations, the negative spaces, who are the good people you can actively support today? Where can you plant seeds of encouragement and resources so that the good in your life just completely outgrows the bad? Think about that for a bit. And hey, I look forward to exploring more amazing insights with you next time.